What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing our Week 13 preview for the 2020 NFL season. So this week has a couple of clunker matchups and a couple of really good ones, so we'll just get right into this right now. Starting off with our first matchup, we have the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons in an NFC South matchup. Another side note is that the other two teams in the NFC South, the Buccaneers and the Panthers, are both on bye weeks. Those are the only two teams on a bye week. And so the interesting thing about the Falcons is that they blew out the Raiders last week, and then the Saints are doing fairly well with Taysom Hill. I wouldn't say last week's game against Denver was a good judge of how good they are right now because Denver was playing with a receiver at quarterback. But they're definitely still doing well. You know, before that, Taysom Hill was playing pretty well. And then Atlanta's defense decided to step up for once, and they destroyed the Raiders. We'll have to see if that holds up. I'm not entirely sold on them. So I think the Saints are going to win this one here, but I think the Falcons will make it a closer game than you'd think it would be. Our next matchup is another division game. This time it's in the NFC North between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. This one, I believe they played in Week 1, and it was actually a really good game where Chicago ended up coming back after Detroit was taking it to them for most of the game. But I think the Bears are they're on something like a 5-game losing streak. It's been really bad. They were 5-1, and then now they're 5-6. It's been terrible. The Bears, they looked nice at first, you know. I really don't think benching Trubisky needed to happen at the time it did. And looking back, you know, maybe keeping Trubisky would have been better for them because Foles ended up playing terribly. But then last week, Trubisky wasn't really that good either. So it's hard to say. The Bears have a real problem. I think Foles will probably be leaving soon, and then Trubisky's just going to get ditched, maybe traded. I don't think anyone else is going to want him, though. Maybe they look to the draft for a quarterback. Maybe they look to free agency next. You know, I don't know what the Bears' option is going to be, you know, moving forward on the long term at quarterback. It's not looking good for them right now. But I think they will beat the Lions here. The Lions are not terrible, but they just haven't been able to clutch up and take some wins, so I have the Bears winning this one. This next game is one of the more interesting ones of the week. It's the gameplay you're seeing here. It's the 8-3 Cleveland Browns against the 8-3 Tennessee Titans. And if I said that sentence before the season, I would have been making it up. You know, I definitely wouldn't have thought that was the truth. But here we are. The Browns are not bad. You know, I don't think that they're as good as their record reflects. But they're definitely not a bad team in the slightest. You know, since last week when the Steelers knocked the Ravens out of contention for winning the division, the Browns actually have a way better shot. Although if the Browns lose this game and the Steelers win theirs, then the Steelers will clinch the division. So that's just something to add. You know, I'll talk about the Steelers later, obviously. But the Browns are not a bad team. But I think the Titans' run game is going to be too much for the Browns' defense. And I know the Browns have Nick Chubb, and you know you could say the same for Tennessee's defense against Nick Chubb. But I just think Derrick Henry is going to take a toll on the Browns' defense, and I think Tennessee's defense might be I think they'll be able to handle Nick Chubb more than the Browns will be able to handle Derrick Henry. So I think that's going to be the difference maker is Tennessee's run game. So I have Tennessee winning this game here. And now we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Miami Dolphins. And so in this game, it would have been really interesting had Joe Burrow not torn his ACL, because it would have been the first meeting of Tua Tagovailoa and Joe Burrow in their NFL careers. Would have been a really cool matchup, but right now the Bengals are not good. They're even worse than they were before without Joe Burrow, so they don't stand much of a chance here, especially against Miami, who has a winning record for the first time in a while. Tua Tagovailoa has been playing pretty well, you know, minus the end of the one game against Denver. But I do think that the Dolphins are definitely going to win this game here. I just wish it would have been a lot more fun to watch had Joe Burrow not torn his ACL. This next game is between the Jaguars and the Vikings. So this one is pretty one-sided because the Vikings, although they still have a losing record, I believe they're 5-6 right now. They are on a win streak. Dalvin Cook's been putting this team on his back, and to Kirk Cousins' credit, he has been playing a lot better than he was in the beginning of the season. The Jaguars are not looking good. You know, even when they had Minshew, they weren't doing very well. But Jake Luton is not helping it either. You know, they got held to 3 points against Pittsburgh. They lost to the Browns. You know, that game was pretty close, but still they couldn't clutch up. And the fact that they've had games that close against winning teams and they still can't win either of them, you know, kind of tells you what you need to know. They're not good in, you know, stressful situations, you know, at least from what I can tell. I do hope they get better, but I gotta say that Jake Luton is not the answer right now, and I don't know if Gardner Minshew is going to be back for this game, but even if he is, I still think the Vikings are going to win, especially with Dalvin Cook. The Jaguars' defense isn't bad, but they're not going to be able to handle Dalvin Cook. This next game is between the Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Jets. Even though the Raiders got smacked by the Falcons, who weren't a very good team last week, I do not see the Jets beating them here. The Raiders' defense is bad, but it's not that bad. So, simply put, I just think the Raiders are going to win this one. Now we have an AFC South matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. So for this one, I think the Colts are definitely going to win. The Texans are on a bit of a comeback, since Romeo Crennel became their head coach. But I gotta say, the Colts defense is probably just gonna stop Deshaun Watson. I could be totally wrong. They did put up 41 points against the Lions, but I just think the Colts defense they're so good. They have a top 3 defense, regardless of what happened to them last week. But I still think the Colts are gonna win this one here. So another division game, this time in the NFC West. It's between the Los Angeles Rams and the Arizona Cardinals. I think that Arizona is not going to be able to handle the Rams defense here. The Rams offense isn't amazing. They did lose to the Niners. The Niners defense is not as good as they were last year, but that's also because they have some starters out. But I just think that the Rams are going to be able to beat them here. I wouldn't be too surprised if the Cardinals won, but I also just think that the Rams are on a bit more of a roll, and they have a way better chance to win the division than the Cardinals do at this point. I think if the Seahawks continue on the trajectory they're on, then the Rams will snatch the division title, but we'll have to see how the rest of the season folds out. So this next game is between the New York Giants and the Seattle Seahawks. This one is not very exciting. The Giants aren't great. They did pick up a win against the Bengals last week, but that was also, they barely won after the Bengals quarterback threw like 2 or 3 interceptions. Not exactly sure what it was. I didn't get a chance to catch the game. I'm just going off of what I remember hearing. And then Seattle's not doing too great themselves. Their defense is still awful. Whoever their defensive coordinator is needs to get fired after this year. They're so terrible. There's no reason that group of guys that's not bad on paper, and even just in general, in the past, they haven't been terrible. But they're just so bad this year. I don't know what the problem is. So I think that defensive coordinator needs to go, and they need to maybe shift some guys around, position-wise. But we'll have to see where that goes. But I do think Seattle's going to beat the Giants here. The Giants aren't that great of a team, but we'll have to see where they go from here. So this next game is between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Another one that I think is going to be pretty one-sided. I think the Packers are a much better team than the Eagles. The NFC East is basically, it's just a battle. It's a close division, but not in a good way. It's not like the NFC West. That division's actually contested, by at least 3 of the teams. But, the least, as I call it, the NFC East is not very good. And I just think the Packers are going to mow through the Eagles here. There's not too much to say. I think Aaron Rodgers is just going to, slice and dice their defense. But we'll have to see how that one turns out. This next game is between the New England Patriots and Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not too impressed with the Patriots as of late. The Chargers have been impressing me a little more. But, I think the Patriots are going to squeeze one out here. It's going to be probably a close game, and I could definitely see it going either way. But I do think the Patriots are going to squeeze one out here. So, the Sunday night game is the Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. And this one's interesting. Maybe it could have been better had it not been for so many injuries to Denver. But I still think the Chiefs would have mowed through them. It is a division game, and the Chiefs have already lost. Their only loss in the season was the division game at home against the Raiders. But I don't think the Broncos are anywhere near the level of the Raiders at this point. Drew Lock's okay, but I'm not sure that he's their guy. The receiving core is doing fine, but especially on defense, they're definitely missing Von Miller at this point. Hopefully he can come back and be good next year. But this year, they're not, I don't think, capable of beating the Chiefs. And, maybe they prove me wrong this weekend, but I just don't see it happening personally, so I have the Chiefs winning here. And so this week is actually unique because there's 3 games that don't take place on Sunday. There's 2 Monday games and a Tuesday game. So the first Monday game is on 2 p.m. Pacific or 5 p.m. Eastern. It's between the Washington football team and Pittsburgh Steelers. This game got moved from Sunday because of the whole Ravens debacle. I don't even want to get into that. I was going to make a video on that topic, but I figured I was going to get into a too deep of a rant, so I decided against it, and I just kind of kept it amongst my personal life. But, I was very heated. That's kind of all you need to know about that. So this game got moved to Monday. I don't think this game will be impacted too much by it. Although the big thing for Pittsburgh is that Bud Dupree is now out for the season with the torn ACL, and I don't think we're going to be able to retain him this year. I think he might have played his last game as a Steeler, which kind of sucks because him and TJ Watt were the best edge rushing duo in the league. I don't really think that's too debatable at this point. But I still think Pittsburgh is going to go through Washington pretty easily here. Washington isn't the worst team, and their defensive line is actually really good. But I do think Pittsburgh is going to win. We had a poor performance against Baltimore, but we still ended up winning. I'm hoping we just got that out of our system and are able to bounce back and have a really good game against Washington here, but we'll have to see. Okay, now the second game for Monday is the Buffalo Bills at the San Francisco 49ers. This one last year would have been a top tier matchup, but since the Niners are not great right now, they are on the upslope, but they're still not that great of a team. I think the Bills are going to do pretty well here. I do think they're going to win. The Niners, they're sort of introducing themselves into the division race, but I think they're too far behind at this point to be able to win it. It's possible, but I think at this point they might even be knocked out of contention, but they are trying to fight for a wild card spot for the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll finish somewhere in the middle of the pack. Maybe they'll end up doing worse than that, but who knows? We'll have to see. But I do think the Bills are definitely going to win this one here. So now for the Tuesday night game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Baltimore Ravens. And so this was the other game impacted by the Steelers-Ravens game this past Wednesday. I think that Dallas is just terrible this year. Dak Prescott, he was kind of pulling a Russell Wilson because Dallas's defense is really bad, just like Seattle's. Their offense was, basically being carried on the back of the quarterback, in this case Dak Prescott, but for the Seahawks it's Russell Wilson. But they're not there without him. Dak was definitely on pace, I think, to win the MVP award. He could have beaten out Wilson, Rodgers, etc., to win the award. But without him, the Cowboys are not very good. Ezekiel Elliott's having a weird down year for him. He's fumbling a lot. He doesn't have the stats that you'd necessarily want or think you'd get from him. And I just don't think the Cowboys are, a good enough team, especially to win the division by this point. I know all the teams suck in that division, but I think the title's going to go to the Giants or football team. But as for this game, I definitely have the Baltimore Ravens winning this one here. And so that's going to do it for the Week 13 games here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like if you did and subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the bell so you get notified every time I upload one of these videos. They come out every single Saturday. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.